The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the darkness of space like a giant silver flower. It orbited the neutral world of Prime, spinning slowly as thousands of stars watched from the endless black. Inside, representatives from 400 species sat in their seats, waiting for the 847th Annual Galactic Summit to begin. Of the Dominion looked around the massive chamber with his 4 eyes. His blue scales shifted colors as he noticed something strange. The human section was empty, 20 seats all dark. No flags, no aides, no ambassador with her sharp tongue and sharper mind. "Where are the humans?" asked High Arbiter, his long neck bending as he searched the room. His golden feathers rustled with confusion. "Perhaps they are late," said, but his voice carried no concern. "Humans are often dramatic. They probably want us to wait for them." The minutes passed, then an hour. The chamber buzzed with whispers. Species that had traveled across the galaxy for this summit grew restless. Still, the human seats remained empty. In the observer section, far from the main floor, an elderly woman sat alone. Her name was, and she had served as human ambassador 60 years ago, before her retirement. Now she watched the proceedings as an independent observer, a courtesy title that meant nothing. Her gray hair was tied back simply, and her old eyes studied the empty seats with a knowing sadness. She had seen this coming. For decades she had seen it coming. High Arbiter finally stood. His tall, bird-like body commanded attention. "We will begin without the Terran delegation," he announced. "Their absence is noted. The summit will proceed." And so it did. Trade agreements were discussed and signed. Border disputes between the and they were settled with maps and promises. Military budgets were approved, ships were allocated, and patrol routes were assigned. Then came Resolution 2847. Presented it himself. His 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he spoke. "The human patrol territories have been inefficiently managed," he said. "They guard too much space with too few ships. For the safety of all council members, I propose we redistribute 30% of their territories to more established species." A few voices rose in weak protest, but not many. The humans were not there to defend themselves, and their allies were few. The collective, who had always favored humanity, had sent no representative this year. The smaller species who relied on human protection stayed silent, afraid to anger the larger powers. Old closed her eyes. She remembered when she had stood on that same floor decades ago, asking for simple recognition of human colony rights. She remembered the polite refusals, the empty promises, the ways predecessor had smiled while voting against her. She remembered the Terran plague, when 14 billion people died because the council chose quarantine over aid. She remembered everything. The vote passed easily. Resolution 2847 became law. Human territories shrank by 30%, given to species who had done nothing to earn them. High Arbiter felt a small unease in his chest, but he pushed it away. "This is simply reorganization," he told himself. "The humans will understand. They always understand." The summit continued for 3 more days. Decisions were made. Laws were passed. The galaxy's future was shaped by hands that did not include humanity. On the final day, as the representatives prepared to return to there, a single message arrived. It came from Earth, transmitted through official channels, stamped with the seal of the Terran Collective. High Arbiter read it aloud to the assembly, his voice growing quieter with each word. "The Terran Collective formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. We wish you well." That was all. No explanation, no list of grievances, no demands for negotiation, no anger, no threats. Just goodbye. The chamber erupted in confusion, laughed, his scales turning bright orange with amusement. "A tantrum," he declared. "They are upset about the territory vote. They will return in a year, begging for their seats back." Others were not so sure. The ambassador, a small creature with 6 legs and compound eyes, spoke softly. The humans have never withdrawn before. In 800 years they have never missed a summit. Something is wrong. Nothing is wrong, insisted. Humans are emotional, they will calm down. But High Arbiter stared at the message on his screen, reading those simple words again and again. We wish you well. Not we demand, or we protest, or we will return when you meet our conditions. We wish you well. It sounded like something you said to someone you would never see again. In the observer section, Old stood slowly. Her bones ached, but she made her way to the exit without looking back. A young aide stopped her at the door. Ambassador, the aide said, using her old title out of respect. Do you know why they left? Looked at the young alien for a long moment. Then she smiled, and there was no joy in it. You took everything from them, she said quietly. Their requests, their territories, their dignity, and they gave everything anyway. They protected your borders. They held the Wraith line. They asked for nothing but respect, and you gave them nothing at all. She turned toward the door. Now they have stopped giving, and you will learn very soon exactly how much they gave. She walked out into the corridor, leaving the young aide standing alone. Behind her, the Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with arguments and confusion. Species blamed each other, continued to laugh, continued to worry. And somewhere far away, on a blue planet called Earth, 8 billion humans went about their lives in peace. They did not watch the summit. They did not care about the Council's reaction. They had simply walked away. And they were not coming back. 3 months passed since the humans walked away. At first, the galaxy barely noticed. Trade continued. Ships flew their routes. The Council met and made decisions without the empty human seats bothering anyone. Then the cracks began to appear. On the mining world of 4, deep beneath the surface, a supervisor named stared at his chief engineer with all 6 of his compound eyes. The engineer was human. His name was, and he had worked in these mines for 30 years. What do you mean you are leaving? Demanded. His 6 legs clicked nervously on the metal floor. Shrugged, he was a big man with rough hands and tired eyes. My contract ends next week. I am not renewing it. But you must. You are the only one who understands the deep shafts. The geology is unstable. Without you. Without me, you will need to find someone else. Picked up his bag and slung it over his shoulder. I am going home. Earth needs engineers too. Tried everything. He offered more money, better quarters, a promotion, refused them all politely. It is not about money, the human said. It is about belonging somewhere. I spent 30 years here and your council just voted to take our territories. Nobody asked us. Nobody cared what we thought. He smiled sadly. I am tired of being useful but not wanted. He left the next morning. 2 weeks later, Shaft 7 collapsed. 40 workers died. Without knowledge of the unstable rock, no one had seen the warning signs. 1 month after that, 2 more shafts collapsed. Production dropped by 40%. The mining consortium sent desperate messages to Earth, begging for human engineers. Earth did not reply. Far across the galaxy in the nebula, the trade lanes grew dangerous. For 200 years, human patrol vessels had guarded these routes. Their ships were not the biggest or the strongest, but their crews had a strange gift. They could predict where pirates would strike. They seemed to know the raiders' minds. Now the human ships were gone. The warships that replaced them were powerful, with heavy weapons and thick armor, but they were also slow, predictable. The pirates learned their patrol patterns within weeks. Merchant Captain flew her small trading ship through the nebula, dodging debris from a recent attack. She was human, one of the few who still operated independently in Council space. Her cargo was medical supplies for a colony that desperately needed them. A patrol ship hailed her. Human vessel, state your business. I am delivering medicine to station, replied calmly. My cargo manifest is transmitted. "You should not be here," the captain said. "This area is dangerous. Pirates attacked 3 ships yesterday." Looked at her sensors. She could see the ship hanging in space, proud and strong and completely in the wrong position. If you moved your patrol route 12 degrees north and increased your speed by 15%, you would catch them at the asteroid cluster. That is where they hide. There was silence on the communication channel. Then the captain laughed. "A human trader thinks she knows better than military officers. Stay in your lane, little merchant." Sighed, she had tried. She completed her delivery and left the nebula without incident. Behind her, 2 more merchant ships were attacked that week. The patrol never found the pirates. Sent a report to the council, explaining the raider pattern she had observed. She offered suggestions for patrol routes. She asked for nothing in return. The council filed her report and ignored it. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic front, things grew stranger. High Arbiter had been trying for weeks to open talks with the collective. They were powerful and neutral. They controlled important trade routes and rare resources. For centuries, they had dealt exclusively with humanity. Sent his best diplomat, a silver-tongued name, to meet with the ambassador. Was confident. He had negotiated dozens of treaties. Surely he could convince them to work with the council. The meeting lasted exactly 5 minutes. "We have no quarrel with the council," the ambassador said. Her face was unreadable behind her ceremonial mask. "We also have no interest in the council. When the humans return, we will speak with them. Until then, our borders remain closed to your ships." Tried to argue. He offered trade deals, military alliances, technology sharing. They listened politely, then repeated the same words. "When the humans return." Returned to with nothing. The High Arbiter sat alone in his office that night, staring at reports. Mining production down, pirate attacks up, diplomatic doors closing, and everywhere the same pattern. The humans had been involved in everything. They had connected everything. They had been the quiet thread holding the galaxy together. And no one had noticed until the thread was gone. He decided to send an envoy to Earth, a formal mission. He chose his best ambassador and gave her simple instructions. Find out what the humans wanted. Find out how to bring them back. The envoy traveled for 3 weeks to reach Earth. She was greeted warmly at the spaceport. Humans smiled and bowed and offered her tea in a beautiful garden. They answered her questions about the weather. They showed her their cities and their art and their children playing in parks. But when she asked about the council, they simply changed the subject. "Why did you leave?" she asked finally, desperately. The human official smiled. "We did not leave anywhere. We are right here. We simply stopped coming to a place where we were not welcome." "What would make you return?" The official poured more tea. "That is not the right question." "Then what is the right question?" But the human just smiled and asked if she wanted to see the cherry blossoms. They were beautiful this time of year. The envoy returned to with nothing. No demands, no conditions, no path forward. Just silence. And in that silence began to understand something terrible. The humans had not left in anger. Anger could be soothed. They had not left for profit. Profit could be negotiated. They had left because they had stopped caring, and that realized was far worse. You cannot negotiate with someone who wants nothing from you. You cannot threaten someone who has already walked away. And you cannot apologize to someone who is no longer listening. The cracks were spreading and did not know how to stop them. 6 months after humanity walked away, the darkness came. It started at the edge of the galaxy, where stars grew thin and space grew cold. The frontier world of was a small colony, home to 3 million and a handful of other species. They lived simple lives, farming the purple plains and fishing the silver seas. They did not know that for 200 years, human ships had stood between them and something terrible. The wraiths came at night. They were not alive, not in any way the galaxy understood. They were shapes made of dark energy, shadows that moved through walls and consumed everything they touched. Organic matter vanished into them like water into sand. Ships, buildings, people, all gone. The first warning came from a fishing boat. The captain saw the sky turn black, even though it was midday. Then his crew began to disappear, one by one, pulled into the darkness by hands that were not there. His final transmission was just screaming. Within hours, the wraith spread across like a flood. The colony's defense grid fired everything it had. Missiles, energy beams, nuclear weapons, nothing worked. The wraiths absorbed it all and kept coming. The government sent an emergency signal to the council. High Arbiter received it in the middle of the night. His golden feathers went pale as he read the words. Wraith incursion, Category 5, requesting immediate military support. Category 5, the highest level. The last time there had been a Category 5 incursion, 3 worlds had died before the humans stopped it. The humans felt cold. He sent orders to the nearest fleet, commanded it personally, eager to prove that they could do what humans had done. His fleet was impressive. 50 warships, the pride of the Dominion, heavy armor, powerful weapons, the best crews in the galaxy, or so believed. They arrived 2 days later. By then, half the colony was already dead. Ordered his ships into formation. He had studied human tactics against the wraiths. He knew the basic strategies: attack the center of the mass, use focused energy beams, maintain formation and support each other. What he did not know was why those tactics worked. What he did not know was that the humans had something else, something they had never shared. The battle lasted 6 hours. The ships fired everything. Their beams cut through the wraith mass, scattering the darkness temporarily, but the wraiths reformed. Again and again they reformed, and slowly they began to surround the fleet. The first ship to fall was a cruiser called Dominion's Pride. The wraiths wrapped around it like a black hand, and the ship simply crumbled. The metal aged 1,000 years in seconds. The crew did not even have time to scream. More ships followed. One by one, the proud fleet was consumed. Watch from his flagship as his empire's greatest weapons failed. His 4 eyes were wide with terror. "How?" he whispered. "How did the humans stop these things?" No one answered. No one knew. His flagship was the last to fall, died calling for reinforcements that could not arrive in time. His final words were lost in static. Died with him, 3 million people gone in 3 days. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. The wraiths were back, the humans were gone, and no one knew how to stop the darkness. On a refugee ship fleeing the system, a young named sat in the crowded cargo bay. She had escaped on the last transport, leaving behind her family, her home, everything she knew. Now she floated in space, surrounded by strangers, trying not to cry. An old woman sat beside her, human. Her hair was white, her face lined with age, but her eyes were kind. Her name was, and she had been a scientist studying this unique ecosystem. "I am sorry for your loss," said softly. Looked at her. The human seemed so calm, so peaceful, even though she had also lost everything. "How can you be so quiet?" asked. "Your people left us, they abandoned us, and now the wraiths." "We did not abandon you," said gently. "We walked away. There is a difference." "What difference? People are dead." Was silent for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you know what Resolution 1156 was?" Shook her head. She had never heard of it. "It was passed 847 years ago," said. "There was a plague on Earth, a terrible sickness that spread faster than anything we had seen. We asked the Council for help, medical supplies, scientists, ships to evacuate the sick. We begged." She paused, her old eyes distant. "The Council voted to quarantine us instead. They sealed Earth off from the galaxy, no ships in or out. They said it was for safety, for the greater good." Her voice grew quiet. 14 billion humans died, My grandmother was one of them. She was 7 years old. Felt something cold in her chest. I did not know. No one remembers, said. That is the problem. We asked for help once, just once, and the answer was no. So we stopped asking. We rebuilt alone. We grew strong alone. We held the wraith line alone because we knew that no one would hold it for us. She looked at with those kind, tired eyes. We did not leave because we hate you. We left because we were tired. Tired of giving everything and receiving nothing. Tired of being needed but not wanted. Tired of dying for people who would not remember our names. Did not know what to say. She thought about her own world, about the 3 million people who had died because the humans were gone. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to blame someone. But looking at this old woman, this survivor of a plague that had killed 14 billion, she could not find the anger. Will you come back? Asked finally. Smiled sadly. That depends on you, not us. On us. We learned to live without the council. The question is whether the council can learn to live differently. Whether you can become the kind of people who help others, not because you need something, but because it is right. She patted his hand gently. We will be watching. We always have been. The refugee ship flew on through the darkness. Behind them was gone forever. Ahead, the galaxy burned with fear. And somewhere, on a blue planet called Earth, 8 billion humans continued their quiet lives. They were watching. They were waiting. And they were not ready to come back. Not yet. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away. The galaxy was burning. The wraiths had consumed 18 worlds. Billions were dead. Billions more were refugees crowding into stations and ships, fleeing from a darkness that seemed unstoppable. The council met every week now, but their meetings accomplished nothing. They argued. They blamed. They pointed fingers at everyone except themselves. High Arbiter sat alone in his office most nights. Was dead. Many other leaders had followed. Was now the senior voice of the council, not because he was the best, but because he was still alive. He made a decision. Bring me everything, he told his staff. Every record, every resolution, every document involving humanity. I want to understand why they left. His staff thought he was wasting time. The galaxy was dying and he wanted to read old papers, but they obeyed. The task fell to a junior archivist named. She was young for a barely 50 years old, with soft gray feathers and large curious eyes. Her job was usually boring, organizing files that no one would ever read. Now she had been asked to find the truth. She began with Resolution 1156. The file was old, buried deep in the archives. Read it slowly, her eyes growing wider with each paragraph. 847 years ago, a plague struck Earth. The humans called it the Gray Death because of what it did to the skin of the dying. It spread through air, through water, through touch. Within months, it had infected half the planet. Earth's government sent an emergency request to the Council. They asked for medical supplies. They asked for scientists who studied alien diseases. They asked for ships to evacuate children to safe colonies. The council debated for 3 days. Read the transcripts of that debate. Speaker after speaker rose to argue against helping Earth. The disease might spread to our worlds, said one. Human biology is too different from ours, said another. It would cost too much, said a third. In the end, the vote was simple. Quarantine Earth. Let no ships in or out. Wait for the plague to run its course. 14 billion humans died over the next 2 years. The survivors found a cure on their own. They rebuilt their world on their own. They buried their dead on their own. And they never asked the council for help again. Felt sick. She had been taught that the council was wise and just. She had been taught that the council protected all its members equally. This was not equal. This was murder by silence. She kept reading. Resolution 2033 passed 612 years ago. Humanity discovered new planets in the outer reach, rich with resources. They filed a claim with the Council, following every rule perfectly. The Council voted to give those planets to the instead. The reason? More established species should have priority. The humans did not fight. They simply moved further out to colder and harder worlds that no one else wanted. They made those worlds bloom. Resolution 4892 passed 203 years ago. Humanity offered to share their wraith suppression technology. For the first time in history, they were willing to explain how they held the line against the darkness. The Council demanded they surrender the technology completely. No conditions, no partnership, just hand it over for galactic security. The humans there offered the same day. They never made it again. Found hundreds of similar records, trade deals that cheated humanity, territory decisions that ignored human claims, military requests that were, aid appeals that were forgotten. And through it all, the humans kept helping. They patrolled dangerous space lanes. They sent relief ships to disaster zones. They shared food and medicine with struggling colonies. They asked for nothing in return. Until Resolution 2847. Read the final document. The vote to reduce human territory by 30%. The vote that passed while the human seats sat empty. The last insult after centuries of insults. She understood now. The humans had not left because of one decision. They had left because of 1,000 decisions. 1,000 small cuts that had slowly bled away their faith in the galaxy. She brought her findings to High Arbiter. He read them in his dark office, the glow of his screen lighting his tired face. He read about the plague. He read about the stolen colonies. He read about the rejected technology. He read about everything the Council had done and everything the humans had given anyway. When he finished, he sat in silence for a long time. "We did not drive them away," he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. "We taught them we would never help them, so they stopped asking. And now—" He looked out his window at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the wraiths were consuming another world. Now they have stopped giving. Stood awkwardly, not knowing what to say. What do we do now? Laughed, but there was no humor in it. I do not know. We spent 800 years teaching humanity that we would never be their friends. How do you undo 800 years? He turned back to his desk, to the pile of reports about dying worlds and failing defenses. "I used to think the humans needed us," he said quietly. "I thought they were young and foolish, and we were wise and experienced. I thought they should be grateful we allowed them in the Council at all." He shook his head. "I was wrong. They never needed us. We needed them, and we treated them like servants while they treated us like family. Now the servants have left and the family is burning." Gathered her courage. "Perhaps it is not too late, perhaps if we apologize." "Apologize?" Looked at her with ancient, tired eyes. "We killed 14 billion of their people and called it quarantine. We stole their worlds and called it policy. We rejected their help and called it security. And now we have 18 dead worlds because we drove away the only people who could protect us." He turned away. "An apology is just words. Words mean nothing without change. And I do not know if we can change. I do not know if we deserve to." Left his office feeling heavy. She walked through the empty corridors of the Council station, past doors that used to lead to human offices, past conference rooms where human diplomats used to argue for justice. All empty now, all silent. She stopped at a window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere in that vast darkness was Earth. 8 billion humans living their lives in peace while the galaxy tore itself apart. They were not cruel. They were not vengeful. They had simply learned through centuries of pain that they could only rely on themselves. And the galaxy had taught them that lesson. Made a decision. She would keep researching. She would find every record, every document, every piece of evidence. She would build a complete history of what the Council had done to humanity. And maybe, someday, someone would use that history to build something better. It was a small hope, but in a galaxy that was burning, small hopes were all they had left. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away. The Galactic Council was dying. 18 worlds were gone, swallowed by the wraiths. The great fleets that once ruled the stars were broken. The Dominion had lost half its ships. They had lost their capital world. Species that had argued over borders now fought over food and shelter. And still, the humans did not return. High Arbiter made a decision. He would go to Earth himself, not as a council leader demanding answers, but as a single person asking for help. He would travel alone in a small ship, carrying nothing but an apology written by the surviving council members. His advisors called him foolish. The humans will laugh at you, they said. They will turn you away. Perhaps, replied, but someone must try, someone must take the first step. He flew for 3 weeks through empty space. The stars seemed colder than he remembered. When he reached the edge of human territory, a patrol ship appeared on his sensors. The voice on his communication screen was calm and professional. Unidentified vessel, this is Captain of the Terran Defense Force. State your purpose. Looked at the human captain on his screen. Was young, with short dark hair and steady eyes. He wore a simple uniform with no medals or decorations. I am High Arbiter of the Galactic Council, said. I come alone and unarmed. I wish to speak with your government. There was a pause, seemed to consider something. Then he nodded. Follow me, I will escort you to Earth. They flew together through human space, watched through his window as they passed space stations and shipyards. Everything was busy but peaceful. Ships moved in orderly patterns. Colonies glowed with light. Children waved from observation decks. It was so different from council space, where everything was fear and chaos. Earth appeared like a blue jewel in the darkness. Had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. Oceans and clouds and green continents, spinning slowly in the sunlight. Captain guided him to a landing pad in a city called Seoul. The buildings were tall and elegant, surrounded by trees and gardens. People walked the streets below, going about their ordinary lives. A woman waited for him at the government building. She was middle-aged, with gray-streaked hair and a calm face. She wore simple clothes, nothing that showed her rank. High Arbiter, she said, bowing slightly. I am President, welcome to Earth. She led him to a small office with windows looking out over the city. Tea was served. The cups were warm in his hands. He gave her the council's apology. Pages and pages of formal words, expressing regret for Resolution 2847 and asking humanity to return. He also gave her the council's request for military aid against the wraiths. President read every word carefully. Her face showed nothing. When she finished, she set the papers aside. You know, she said, my grandmother was born during the plague, the Gray Death. She was one of the survivors. She used to tell me stories about those years, about the ships that never came, about the medicine that was never sent, about burying her parents in a mass grave because there was no one left to dig individual ones. Felt small, he said nothing. My mother was born on a colony in the outer reach, continued. The one the council gave to the... We had to leave everything, start over on a frozen rock that nobody wanted. My mother grew flowers in a greenhouse made of ice. She was proud of those flowers. She paused. My father served on the Wraith line for 30 years. He died in a battle at the edge of known space, holding the darkness back while the council debated whether to send reinforcements. They debated for 6 hours. The reinforcements never came. His voice was barely a whisper. I am sorry. I know, said, but sorry does not bring back 14 billion people. Sorry does not give my grandmother her childhood. Sorry does not make my father less dead. She stood and walked to the window. The city stretched below, peaceful and alive. "We do not hate you," she said. "We never did. Hatred takes energy, and we spent all our energy surviving. We simply realized that we were alone. We always had been. The council was never our family. It was just a building we visited sometimes. A building where we were tolerated but never welcomed." Felt tears in his eyes. Did not cry often, but he could not stop them. "Then there is no hope." President turned to face him. For the first time, her expression softened. "There is always hope, but hope is not a gift. It is a relationship. It must be built brick by brick over years and decades and centuries." She walked back to her chair and sat down. "You want our help, then help us first. Not because you need something from us. Not because the wraiths are at your door, but because you want to be the kind of people who help others. Prove that the council can change. Prove it for a year, 10 years, 100 years, however long it takes." She extended her hand across the desk. "We are patient. We have had to be. The question is, can you learn to be?" Looked at her hand. It was such a small thing, just 5 fingers and a palm, but it felt like the most important thing in the universe. He thought about everything his people had done. The plague, the stolen colonies, the rejected technology, the centuries of contempt. He thought about the 18 dead worlds and the billions of refugees. He thought about whether he deserved to take this hand. And then he realized that deserving did not matter. What mattered was choosing. What mattered was starting. He reached out and took her hand. It was warm, it was human. It was the beginning of something new. "Teach us," he said, "please." President smiled. It was a small smile, careful and guarded, but it was real. "The first lesson is this," she said. "Help someone today, not because you want something, not because they can help you back, just because they need help. Do that every day for 50 years and then we will talk again." Nodded. 50 years. A moment for some species, a lifetime for others, but it was a start. He left Earth the next day with nothing but those words. No treaty, no alliance, no promise of aid. Just a hand extended in the darkness. Just a chance to become something better. 50 years later, the Wraith line held again. Council ships fought beside human ships. Technology was shared. Losses were shared. The burden was shared. In the Grand Assembly Hall, a new seat stood at the center, larger than the others, positioned where everyone could see it. Ambassador Minu of Earth took his place. He did not smile, neither did the council members. But when the first vote was called, Minu raised his hand. And for the first time in galactic history, every other hand rose with his. The long walk home had begun. And this time, no one was walking alone.